So let us start. Today, I think we have to pick up the threads from page number, just a second. Yeah. So we are in book 1, Canto 5, the yoga of the spirit's freedom and greatness. I think I lost the page where we stopped last. Yeah, got that. Here. So book 1, Canto 5, the yoga of the spirit's freedom and greatness. This is what we have been reading, reflecting upon. And let us take a few lines before. So we'll just have an overlap. We'll just read through all those in the last session that we did. And then we take up the new lines today, which are not colored right now in front. So let us start from here. A greater force than the earthly held his limbs. So if one by one we can read the colored bits, that would be nice. So one person can read the blue one, the other one, the purple one, like that we can cover.
Shall I
Yeah.
read the first
हाँ
one?
जी, हाँ, बिल्कुल.
A greater force than the earthly held his limbs. Huge workings bared his undiscovered shells. Strange energies wrought and screened tremendous hands. Unwound the triple cord of mind and freed the heavenly wideness of a Godhead's gaze. As through a dress the weaver's shape is seen, they reach through forms to the hidden absolute, a cosmic feeling and transcendent sight.
Shall I read, Monica?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Increased and heightened were the instruments. Illusion lost her aggrandizing lens. As from her failing hand the measures fell, atomic looked the things that loomed so large. The little ego's ring could join no more in the enormous spaces of the self. The body now seemed only a wandering shell, his mind the many frescoed outer court of an imperishable inhabitant. His spirit breathed a superhuman air. The imprisoned deity rent its magic fence. As with a sound of thunder and of seas, vast barriers crashed around the huge escape. Immutably couple with the world, circle and end of every hope and toil, inexorably drawn round thought and act, the fixed immovable peripheries, effaced themselves beneath the incarnate's tread.
The dire vehemence and the bottomless rift between which life and thought forever move. Forbidden still to cross the dim dread bound, the guardian darknesses mute and formidable, empowered to circumscribe the wingless spirit in the boundaries of mind and ignorance, protecting no more a dual eternity, vanished, presiding their enormous role. Once figure of creation's vain ellipse, the expanding zero lost its giant curve.
Yeah, thank you. So if anyone next can read all the rest of the colored bits.
Yeah, I'll read.
Yeah.
The old adamantine vetoes stood no more. Overpowered were earth and nature's obsolete rule. The python coils of the restricting law, could not restrain the swift arisen God. Abolished were the scripts of destiny. There was no small death-hunted creature more, no fragile form of being to preserve from an all-swallowing immensity. The great hammer beats of a pent-up world heart burst open the narrow dams that keep us safe against the forces of the universe. The soul and cosmos faced as equal powers.
Yeah, thank you. So this all that we have been reading, it gives like a kind of an imagery of when we see these movies like Harry Potter and other fantastical movies where there are magic and wizardry and like great humongous beings, and a huge powerful being is there on whom a cast as if has been a spell has been cast. Some spell is there, some uh, under the influence of which he has lost his powers, and as if he's tied with chains, and those chains are enough to keep him tied because he's under the spell. So now that he's not anymore under the spell, he's kind of rising up, assuming his titanic image back again, the true character back again. And now the old laws, the old restricting laws of those chains that earlier applied to that creature are not applying to him anymore. So this we were reflecting last time. The python coils of the restricting law could not restrain the swift arisen God. So now he is really away from that spell that he was under the influence of. And now those earlier laws and restricting coils are not valid anymore for swift arisen God. There was no small death hunted creature anymore. So he's just totally transformed. He's not identified himself with this little me who always has to be protected from the vast cosmos from which anything can eat him up. So, how it comes towards the end, there was no small death hunted creature more, no fragile form of being to preserve from all swallowing immensity. So earlier it seems like, oh, we are so little, and then the world is so vast from which we have to protect ourselves. Now that equation was not valid anymore. And again, narrow dams, we were reflecting last time, these chakras, which when they open on their own or with the effort of practice and sadhana, then they connect us to our higher self. So now those narrow dams, which are usually kept closed because we can't tolerate that much of shakti and force and fullness, they now burst open the narrow dams that keep us safe against the forces of the universe. The soul and cosmos faced as equal powers. Usually we see ourselves as very little and the cosmos is huge, but now the soul and cosmos are equal powers. So that is our potential, all of us. It is latent within us, it is hidden within us. And if that point is not touched, that we consciously not even embark upon this journey, That's why masters have said, why are you wasting your life like that, a human life? So today we take a little bit ahead, and since it is liberation or freedom of the spirit from all the restricting lower nature and all the determinism of the lower laws, we may also read a few lines from Synthesis of Yoga, the chapter Liberation of the Spirit, which resonates very well with what we are reading right now. But that will come after we have touched upon few lines today. So let us take newer lines, and we will also take commentary of Mr. M.P. Pandit on these new lines later. So we can take these together. If anyone would like to read, please go ahead.
A boundless being in a measureless time invaded nature with the infinite. He saw unpathed, unwalled his titan scope. All was uncovered to his sealless eye, a secret nature stripped of her defense. Once in a dreaded half-light formidable, overtaken in her mighty privacy, lay bare to the burning splendor of his will.
So now he can see himself with this larger vision, the subtle vision that he has got, since all the curtains in front are taken away because of the sadhana and aspiration. A boundless being in a measureless time. So now he can see himself as that, truly, which usually in our ordinary ignorant consciousness we can't see. We see ourselves as so limited, narrow, constricted. All the time we have the need to preserve ourselves from this and that. कहीं ये ना खा जाए हमें, वो ना खा जाए, इससे ना परेशान हो जाए, उससे ना परेशान हो जाए. So now he sees himself truly as a boundless being in a measureless time. Again, equating with the earlier line, soul and cosmos phased as equal power. So measureless time is equated with the boundless being also, not a limited being. Invaded nature with the infinite. Usually we are invaded by the nature. Usually we are under all the influence of nature. अगर भूख लगी है तो अपने आप को रोक ही नहीं पाते. It's like भूख लगी है मतलब सिर दर्द हो गया भूख की वजह से, काम नहीं हो रहा भूख की वजह से. So we are invaded by nature all the time. We are like that, when we are identified with the body consciousness. But now with his new vision and with his new realization, he realized that he is not what he thought he was, and he was something more, and that invades the nature. He is more than the nature. Invaded nature with the infinite. He saw unpathed, unwalled his titan scope. So now titan, usually at times we also use it for forces which are like larger than life, mostly evil at times. But titan is also which is like huge, like we had Titanic, a huge, humongous ship. So there are titan powers waiting within us, limited beings, so-called apparently limited beings. But they have to be explored, they have to be dig out. So now he's able to see his titanic scope in front of him, that, oh my God, this is what I'm capable of. So usually we are not aware of our scopes. And as I was sharing the last time, that there is a compilation by A.S. Dalalji, The Powers Within. It's also reflecting on the power of thought, the power of imagination, how wrongly and badly usually we are using all these powers, and how much they can turn extremely opposite and begin to help us when we use it nicely, and when we are not used up by the thoughts, but we are using the thoughts. All was uncovered to his sealless eye. So now the seals on the eye are taken away. And now he has a vision which was not visible to him earlier. All was uncovered to his sealless eye. तो हमारी आंखों पे, हमारे विजन पे एज इफ कि ठप्पे लगे हुए हैं, गोंद लगा के वो पुराने जमाने में सील लगा देते थे, तो वो ठप्पे हमारी आंखों पे चिपके हुए हैं. And that is all these layers and layers and layers of ignorance in front. And this is our job as a human being. This is like full-time employment that we have, that slowly we have to look at those curtains in front of us and then let go of them, so that we can rise to our full stature. So now those seals are taken away from his vision, and इसे सूक्ष्म दृष्टि भी कह सकते हैं, that something more is visible, subtle vision, inner vision, larger vision. A secret nature stripped of her. Now what is he able to see with this vision without the seals in front? He is able to see that there is a secret nature working in the whole manifestation. A secret nature stripped of her defense. So अगर डिफेंस होता है उसको हम बोलते हैं माया, बट अब हम उसको माया नहीं बोल सकते, because now all of the machinery is lying bare, naked in front of him. Like, oh, this is how it works. Like all the steps are delineated in front of him. But to us, it at times seems like, oh, how can this happen? Like we are taken by a surprise or shock, because we don't see all those events which happen before it. Our vision is not open to it, because only thing that we see or are absorbed with is the grosser vision, the vision of the grosser senses. So all the time, if my instruments are involved in taking true, seeing truly as, okay, this is only true. Why? Because this I can touch and feel, and all that I can touch and feel, that only is true. So as long as I am just believing that to be true, I am not open to the subtle vision. But there comes a time in our life, all of our lives, whether in this lifetime or another, that through life experiences, somehow it happens that it shakes us up and we are forced and compelled to step back from the grosser vision and to see something beyond that, in little intangible. So now, because of this vision, a secret nature, he can see all the, imagine that there is a huge machinery and it is all covered, you can't see the machinery. So like science, like earlier people say, for example, want to know that how is lightning happening, and oh, maybe it's magic. But slowly scientists discovered that, oh, this is how it is happening. So now it is totally bare and naked in front of them. They can see. So like that, it's like a big, huge machine, and now its defenses are stripped away. The cloak over it, the blanket over it is taken away. A secret nature stripped of her defense. Now it's not able to defend her inner workings from this eye anymore. Once in a dreaded half-light formidable, overtaken in her mighty privacy, lay bare to the burning splendor of his will. So once this very nature appeared formidable, because you don't know anything about its working, anything, anytime, anything can happen. Oh, I can die any moment, I can lose my loved ones any moment, because we don't know how things are operating, right? So always full of fear of this huge power working above us. Once in a dreaded half-light formidable, half-light because we don't see clearly how it operates, how it functions, that machinery. But in that half-light it appears formidable, but once we get to know the inner machinery, now it doesn't appear formidable. So now he can see, overtaken in her mighty privacy. Now it's not private anymore, lay bare, it's totally without clothes in front of Ashupati's burning splendor of his will. Now, so will is something with which you can control these forces, you can master these forces. कि अब तुम मेरे कब्जे में हो, मैं तुम्हारे कब्जे में नहीं. So now those powers are within his control, because he knows their workings. He is not in half-light. And we can relate many of these aspects to these movies like Harry Potter and this Golden Compass, because in these movies also things like that happen, that the moment inner purity is there, inner knowing is there, you can actually use those powers rather than being used by them. Yeah, so anything here, anyone? So we can take it further then. Once we cover a few bits and pieces, then we will go to Pandit Ji's commentary. Yeah, who would like to read?
Yeah.
Yes.
In shadowy chambers lit by a strange sun, and opening hardly to hid mystic keys, her perilous arcanes and hooded powers confessed the advent of a mastering mind and bore the compulsion of a time-born gaze.
So अभी तक जो ये powers है, ये बड़ा अपना अपने राज में, they are the master of themselves, and there is nobody who can who they have seen, like if you see that it's a movie that is unfolding, they have not seen one human being who can see them. They are working in secrecy. They have not seen any one human being that can see, who can see their working. So they are like totally in power, they are the masters. But now they see the presence of Ashupati, who is time born gaze, because he is a human being. They have not seen a human being who has developed such a mastery that he can actually see bare naked how these powers function, and now he is not under the influence of powers but over them. So now in shadowy chambers lit by a strange sun, it's a light which is not the usual light of the regular sun that we see. It's a strange sun. It's a different light in which one sees these workings. In shadowy chambers lit by strange sun and opening hardly to hid mystic keys. Even if one finds the keys, it is difficult to open these things. Not for everybody it works. Her perilous arcanes and hooded powers. Perilous is, we all know, dangerous, very, very dangerous, extremely dangerous. Arcanes, Shraddhavan's commentary, it comes that arcana means like a secret knowledge. So a dangerous secret knowledge, which if we get to know, then you have to be really very pure to use it. Otherwise, you can make bad use of it, something like that. So, and hooded powers, and again these powers, as we see in these movies, they are like wearing hoods and appearing in dark. All these powers and secret knowledge of the nature, they now see this time born gaze in front of them, and they confess that now there is a being in front of us who is the master of us, who we cannot influence. He actually can use us. So they confess the advent of a mastering mind and bore the compulsion of a time born gaze. Compulsion, as if with purity, some eyes, as if they fall on you, and you can do nothing but surrender to them, because there is a purity in that look that falls upon you. So now these powers, usually which are not known to us and through which we are ruled, now Ashwapati can use these powers. And these powers are powers which we can all use as human beings. But we rarely reach a stature and a point in our sadhana. Usually a whole of a lifetime is wasted in atomic things that appear so large. That we waste a whole lifetime, 80 years of life, whatever, 50 years of life wasted. And that is why masters have said, what are you doing? Wake up, wake up, wake up to your true self. Find out why you were here. What is the purpose of human life? So again, it continues all these hooded powers, and what is the scope of these powers. So we'll take two little bits more, and then we go to maybe the commentary. Yeah. If anyone would like to have any reflections, thoughts, or maybe would like to read, please go ahead.
Incalculable in their wizard mode, immediate and invincible in the act, her secret strength, native to greater worlds, lifted above our needy, limited scope, the occult privilege of demigods, and the sure power pattern of her cryptic signs, her diagrams of geometric force, her potencies of marvel thought design, coated employment by an earth-nursed might.
So again, continuing about these powers, occult powers, incalculable in their wizard modes. Now we know a little bit what wizardry is. All of us have seen Harry Potter movies, I guess. So they are incalculable in their tricks and their powers, magic powers. Immediate and invincible in the act. So in usual our day-to-day life, everything takes time, right? So you put effort and then it takes time before the result comes. But they are immediate and invincible, like nothing can fail them, these powers. And they are very quick in their action. Nothing is blocking their action. So these powers are first of all very magical, incalculable in their wizard modes, immediate and invincible in the act. हमारी क्या होता है कि we act with a certain power and either we get failure or not a full result, right? So we are limited in our scope. But these powers are not limited. Her secret strengths native to greater worlds. So these powers are native. Like for us, the native is कि हाँ मतलब अच्छा नहीं काम किया, अच्छा फेलियर हो गया तो ठीक ही तो है, मतलब होता है, अक्सर होता है. We are like that, we are used to such things. But these powers are their secret powers and secret strengths. They are native to the greater worlds. In greater worlds, this is normal, that they are very immediate and invincible. This is a new normal for that kind of a world. They lifted above our needy, limited scope. So our scope is limited. As long as we consider ourselves finite, limited beings, our energy is limited. सुबह काम करेंगे, दोपहर तक थक जाएंगे, फिर हमको आराम चाहिए होगा, थोड़ा रिफ्रेशमेंट ऑफ एनर्जीज चाहिए होगा, कुछ खाना पीना पेट में डालना होगा, फिर से एनर्जी आएगी. So we are all limited in our scope. And secondly, all the time we are needy. Why we are needy? Because we are not yet connected with the true fountain of everything, which fulfills us all the time. When we connect ourselves with that, then it can happen that we are not needy anymore, but we are all the time needy, how we see right now. अच्छा अभी ये हो गया तो अब वो चाहिए तो उसके बाद कुछ और चाहिए. But these powers are above our limited and finite and always needy scopes. They are infinite. And these are occult privilege of demigods and the sure power patterns of her cryptic signs, her diagrams of geometric force, her potencies of marvel fraught design. All these powers with all these characteristics, they are very geometric in nature. They are working in symbols, and there are certain permutations and combination which just click and then they like they work very well. So they have their laws, their own laws which are working, and that is why we see like there are imageries, like we in tantras or mandalas we have imagery, like they are perfect geometric patterns, and people who know about these figures, they know how to make use of them. We don't know about them, but people know how to make use of these powers. So diagrams of geometric force, sure power pattern of her cryptic signs. तो हमारे लिए वो एक पन्ना, वो डायग्राम का, for us maybe we put it in the dustbin, we don't know what it is. But for people who know how these powers work, for them they are marvel fraught design, loaded with marvel. Their functions are loaded with marvel, how they work, but we have actually no clue of it. So now these powers, occult powers, they courted employment by an earth-nursed might. So Ashwapati is earth-nursed might. He has been nursed by the earth. He's a human being born on earth, and that's why he's earth-nursed. He's fed by earth, just like we were reading earlier. Yeah, कहाँ पे था वो? Time-born gaze. So Ashwapati is time-born gaze, Ashwapati is earth-nursed might, but these powers are now courting employment. He's asking कि please हमको भी कुछ use में ले लीजिए. Now they are coming to his feet because they see that he can do it. He's able. So let's take a little bit more. And what they give him is this. Yeah, so we can take this much today. Yeah, would anyone want to read? Lines in green.
A conscious nature's quick machinery, armed with the latent splendor of miracle, the prophet passion of a seeing mind, and the lightning bareness of a free soul force. All once impossible deemed could now become a natural limb of possibility, a new domain of normalcy supreme.
So it's like, पहले आप नौकर थे और आप हमेशा देखते थे कि यार ये कैसे होता है कि ये बॉस एक क्लिक करता है और इसके पास सारा सामान आ जाता है, पैसे भी आ जाते हैं कहीं से, और ही इज एबल टू मेक अदर पीपल वर्क. और अब आप नौकर नहीं हो, अब आप किंग बन गए हो. यू आर एक्चुअली इन हिज पोजीशन, द बॉसेस पोजीशन. नाउ देयर इज अ न्यू नॉर्मल फॉर यू. Now you see that actually how these things can happen, that with a click of a finger everything appears, and in that position there is a new normal. So now as long as we live our life as a beggar, in our egoistic limited consciousness, there is a different normal for us. थकेंगे, दर्द भी होगा, थोड़ा प्यार करेंगे, थोड़ा धोखा मिलेगा. All this is normal in the egoistic consciousness. थोड़ा सा अपने आप को जेनरस करेंगे और फिर मन करेगा बस फिर से कुछ अपने लिए रख लो. So all this is very normal in the ego floor. But now he's above that domain, and because of these powers that are coming revealed to him, he is now armed with a latent splendor of miracle. So all these possibilities are latent within him, but now they are waking up. A conscious nature, quick machinery. Now it is a conscious nature. It's earlier, if we look at nature, ऐसा लगता है कि मैकेनिकल पैटर्न्स चल रहे हैं नेचर के, है ना, जिसपे हमारा कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है. बट यहाँ पे उसको दिख रहा है कि नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. नेचर इज कॉन्शियस ऑफ व्हाट शी इज डूइंग only when we get to know of its inner workings. Now all that is in front of him, and now he's armed with that power of conscious nature, armed with a latent splendor of miracle, and they give him the prophet passion of a seeing mind, a mind that can truly see. And prophet, usually we talk about prophecy, when you can see far beyond your present whatever, the grosser senses. ये अभी वो हुआ भी नहीं है, आपको दिखना शुरू हो गया, उसको हम एक prophecy कहते हैं कि okay, I am prophesying. So this he can see coming things, he can see why things happen, what are the ways in things are unfolding. All that is naked in front of his mind. And the lightning bareness of a free soul force, this is granted to him now. Usually our soul force is clouded with ignorant layers and layers. आपकी लाइट होती है, हर बंदे में एक लाइट होती है, लेकिन वो इतने सादा पर्दों में वो छुपी होती है लाइट कि किसी एक जौहरी को उसको परखना पड़ता है कि हाँ, इस बंदे में कुछ लाइट मुझे दिख रही है, मुझे निकालने दो, लेट मी मेक हिम somebody. अगर वो जौहरी नहीं मिला तो हमें अपनी लाइट खुद मिलती ही नहीं है. So now that light is in full force, lightning bareness of a free soul force. Nothing is covering it. Nothing is, no layer of ignorance is protecting it. All once impossible deemed could now become. पहले जो भी impossible लगता था, अब लगता है नहीं नहीं, अब हो सकता है. Everything is possible. So right now अभी हम सोचते हैं अपने नेचर के बारे में कि यार ये तो कभी नहीं बदलेगा, ये तो कितना इतना टाइट है, these patterns are so tight. Oh death, oh I can never overcome death. So these things earlier appear very impossible, but in this realization where he is right now, all once impossible deemed could now become a natural limb of possibility. तो अब तो ऐसा लग रहा है कि अरे ये तो होना ही है, इट्स लाइक न्यू नॉर्मल है ना, आपके लिए वो न्यू नॉर्मल हो गया. जैसे लाइक किंग एंड बेगर, किंग एंड अ सर्वेंट. फॉर अ किंग इट्स अ न्यू नॉर्म, इट्स अ नॉर्मल, but for a servant it is not a normal. For him it's like, oh, miracle, miracle, a new domain of normalcy supreme. So now a newer life, as if there is a new birth. He's knowing himself as a newly born being with greater powers and titanic scope. And all these are under his mastery rather than being controlled by it. So this is, I think for today we'll take this bit and read a little bit from Liberation of the Spirit, synthesis of yoga, because these lines that we are reading are about the yoga of spirit's freedom and greatness. So how spirit is getting free from the layers of ignorance and it is knowing its greatness. Okay? So वो थोड़ा सा देख लेते हैं. So anything here before we go to that? Anyone?
Yeah, I really like the word needy, because I think once we start seeing the begging bowl in our hands, initially we see it's just from people, we believe, just from relationships. And then we realize, and then we say, oh, I kept that begging bowl, or I broke that begging bowl. And then you realize that it's an inherent begging bowl from the cosmos, always wanting, always needing. Maybe earlier on, if the needs were like maybe 200, now maybe they could be 20 or 2. And yet there is something in me that is always needing, always, always. So, and not realizing that this needing is keeping me limited, right? Like, just if I'm feeling I'm needy or I need this, that means I am not be able to identify with the expanse that I am. So in my cleverness to want more or a little bit more, I am limiting myself. So all these words, even the one before, this, I don't know, even incalculable, right? Like, again, beyond the mind. So very, very hard hitting, as in how we are always calculating and dividing and constricting, and yet what is the capability? So again, yeah, and needy is a common word. I was kind of like, yeah, I shouldn't say this, but usually, she already uses such big words for description. So this felt really resonating. I don't know. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So let's then, anybody else wants to share anything? So I'll be just touching on a few lines. For those of us who are interested, they can of course go ahead and read Synthesis of Yoga themselves. Also, it's always a delight to read, but I'll just be touching. Okay? So we take the chapter, the liberation of the spirit. Here. Yeah, this one. So a few, again, we can take the whole chapter, but I'm not going to do that this time. Yeah, so he talks about, so I'll just go and read and stop at these lines which are resonating with what we were doing right now. The purification of the mental being and the psychic prana. So psychic prana, earlier Sri Aurobindo shares, it is something like a life force which is very clingy. You know, it kind of invades everything. It invades our thoughts, feelings, body, sensations, something which is very clingy and energetic. You know, it invades everything. And Sri Aurobindo earlier talks of purifying ourselves of psychic prana. So he's talking here of that purification that is needed. He's saying that the purification of the mental being and psychic prana. He's saying that we are leaving aside the body and the physical prana. अभी वो उसको बीच में नहीं ला रहे. The purification of the mental being and the psychic prana prepares the ground for a spiritual liberation. Shuddhi is the condition of for mukti. So when we are purifying ourselves, दाल में से हम काला कम करे जा रहे हैं, कम करे जा रहे हैं, कम करे जा रहे हैं, then slowly Shuddhi is knowing what I am not is a condition for knowing what I truly am. So slowly we, and then later on he also shares that first we do a neti, like I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. So first we are doing a neti, but neti is just not enough. We can't stop at the neti. We also have to know what we are truly. You know कि अच्छा मैं ये नहीं हूँ, मैं limited नहीं हूँ, मैं टुच्चा नहीं हूँ, है ना, मैं needy नहीं हूँ, मैं beggar नहीं हूँ. आप उसको side पे करो. I am not the thought, I am not the feeling. You're stepping back. But who am I? You know, so he says that just stepping back is of course required for the shuddhi, neti, like we do the jhadu, you know, in the house. So we are doing the jhadu so that the garbage is cleared off, that is shuddhi, and so that we can be free of the garbage. That would be our mukti. But that is just not enough. There is further more that we have to do, and that is a positive affirmation in the sense of knowing positive qualities that are there, you know, in our being, like kindness, compassion, oneness, in other, you know, layman terms. So he goes further. He says all purification is a release, a delivery, like oh my god, like आपके में से लोड निकल गया, you know, कुछ कचरा था जो फंसा हुआ था और वो नाड़ियों में से निकल गया. All purification is a release, a delivery, for it is a throwing away of limiting, binding, obscuring imperfections and confusions. Purification from desire brings the freedom of psychic prana. So now that prana is free. It is not obstructing the mind, mental and vital and physical, and it is free and can be now put to proper use. That energy can be put to proper use. So purification from desire, when we are not clingy in our thoughts, feelings, and the body, that brings the freedom of psychic prana. Purification from wrong emotions and troubling reactions, they bring the freedom of the heart. Purification from the obscuring limited thought of sense mind, the freedom of intelligence, that all the time I am just believing what the sensory input is telling me and what the interpretation of the mind is. If I step back from that, that brings me freedom of intelligence. Purification from mere intellectuality brings the freedom of gnosis, true knowing. So when I am stepping back also from intellectuality, it brings me true knowing, gnosis. But he says all this is an instrumental liberation. My instruments are liberated. The freedom of the soul, mukti, is of a larger and more essential character. It is an opening out of mortal limitation into the illimitable immortality of the spirit. So I don't have to just know what I am not. That of course clarifies me of garbage. I also have to know who I am. So neti, mukti, by neti I reach a stage which is mukti, When we become more and more the witnessing of thoughts, witnessing of desires, so we are doing the neti. I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm the watcher, stepping back. That brings to a certain degree of liberation from that garbage. But that is not enough. We now have to know ourselves as the spirit. Now the spirit is full of powers, which we were reading right now. So after Shuddhi and continued with Mukti comes the true knowing, which is knowing ourselves as the spirit and then its powers. So yeah, he says, but an absorbed and immersed bliss, a wideness of actionless peace. Now when I am the witness, I actually can be actionless, कि कुछ करना ही नहीं है, बस नेति तो करनी है, देखना है. But he says that is not our aim. But an absorbed and immersed bliss, a wideness of actionless peace, a release of self-extinction or a self-drowning in the absolute is not our aim. But that is a step, because in the earlier chapters he talks about that step. So झाड़ू लगाना, गार्बेज का रेगुलर क्लीन होना सफाई के लिए बहुत जरूरी है. बट उस सफाई के में किस चीज को भरना है, क्या चीज आएंगी वहां पे उस सफाई वाली जगह में, एम्प्टी स्पेस में, दैट नाउ ही टॉक्स ऑफ. We shall give to the idea of liberation, mukti, only the connotation of that inner change which is common to all experience of this kind, essential to perfection and indispensable to spiritual freedom. We shall find that it then implies always two things. Now he talks about that two movements. A rejection, when you are removing the garbage from your house, झाड़ू दे रहे हैं उसको, and an assumption, a negative and a positive side. The negative movement of freedom is a liberation from the principal bonds, the master knots of the slower soul nature. The positive side, an opening or growth into the higher spiritual existence. So this is exactly what we were reading right now, that he is now getting liberated from the lower realms, the earlier python coils and the chains that are around him. He is swiftly arising as a god, and now he is knowing what all is possible for him. So a negative movement of freedom is a liberation from the principal bonds, the master knots of lower soul nature. He talks about the lower knots after some time he talks about those. And then a positive side, an opening or growth into the higher spiritual existence. Now this comes also us to a point where mother shares, somebody had shared with the mother, I am always trying to throw jealousy away from me, but it is not going away, it comes back. So mother tells that sadhak that what you are doing is that when jealousy comes, you throw it away. And when you throw it away, you not listen to its dictates, it is kind of creating a gadda, like a crater. एक मीटेरोइड पड़ता है तो एक क्रेटर पड़ जाता है, गड्ढा हो जाता है, या मॉनसून आता है तो हमारी सड़कों पे गड्ढा आ जाता है. So when you are throwing away jealousy from your being, it is creating a crater in your being. You don't not only have to throw away jealousy, but you have to fill up that empty space with goodness, with goodwill. Exactly these points we hear also in Buddhism, that not only we have to remove the ill will, but we have to cultivate goodwill. Because if we keep removing the ill will, oh यहाँ पे मेरे पास मता, दूर रह, that space is empty. So parallelly, we have to cultivate goodwill. This we also can see in de-addictions. When I am getting de-addicted of my older, whatever abuse substances that I am used to, relationship or money or power or whatever, drugs. When I am de-addicting myself of that, my thought patterns, when I am de-addicting myself of all these, then I have to put in their place something good. मेरे को भरना है अपनी लाइफ को अच्छी चीजों से, so that the older stuff does not come back. So this is the positive side that we are reading right now. So then he talks about the master knots. What are these master knots of which we have to get liberated? But what are these master knots other and deeper twistings than the instrumental knots of the mind, heart, psychic, life force. So instrumental knots, the instrument gives us the knot of mind, the knot of feelings, life, and the knot of this emotive force. All that is there as an instrument that is on us, like आपके ऊपर एक पिंजरा रख दिया तो वो तो है ही है. But what else is there? He says we find them pointed out for us and insisted on with great force and constant emphatic repetition in the Gita. They are 4: desire, ego, the dualities, and the 3 gunas of nature. So this much, desire is a knot which is tying our true self. All that clinginess, wanting. Ego, believing ourselves to be this limited, separate self all the time. This thinking mind, this feeling mind, my feeling, my desire, my life, I have to preserve myself. This limited personality. So desire, ego, the dualities, always running towards pleasure, running away from pain. Seeking name, fame, respect, running away from rejection. So all the time we are engaged in that. That is a knot. And the 3 gunas of nature, the sattva, tamas, and rajas. 3 gunas. So these are the 4 knots. And the original knot is the knot of ignorance. That right now we are not doing. For to be desireless, egoless, equal of mind and soul and spirit, and nestre guna is in the idea of the Gita to be free, mukta. We may accept this description, for everything essential is covered by its amplitude. On the other hand, the positive sense of freedom is to be universal. Now, that is the neti, uski neti karni hai. Dualities ki neti, ego ki neti, desire ki neti, 3 gunas ke above. But now he says, on the other hand, positive sense of freedom, that now he talks of, is to be universal in soul, that we are all one and interconnected, and it's oneness that is binding us. Transcendently one in spirit with God, possessed of the highest divine nature, as we may say, like to God or one with Him in the law of our being. This is the whole and full sense of liberation, and this is the integral freedom of the spirit. So just this much I wanted to share, that we not only have to do the neti. काफी बार क्या होता है, we are just stuck in the neti part, in that we are just doing the neti. अच्छा ये relationship हटा दें, अच्छा वो persons हटा दें मेरी family से, उससे दूर कर दूं अपने आप को, उससे दूर कर दूं. Now I am my true being. Although all that may be necessary as a phase, but that is not it, because whatever is divisive and separative in nature cannot be it. So he says that first we have to purify ourselves of all the limiting, constricting things in our life, including thoughts, feelings, sensations, everything, stepping back. Then I have to realize who I am truly. Just stepping back is not enough, because that will just cut ourselves. At times we stop short at half a thing, and then we are just secluded from everyone, and we are thinking that हमारा कुछ हो गया, we are fixed. But अभी कुछ नहीं हुआ, अभी हम रास्ते में ही रुक गए, पूरी बात ही नहीं बनी. So not only truly realizing ourselves as the soul consciousness, but also ascending in our consciousness, knowing that we are the spiritual consciousness, we are the spirit. And what is really a spirit? Is the spirit disconnected from rest of the creation? What are the powers of the spirit? This cannot be theoretical. This has to be done in our being. This is what yoga or sadhana is about. Yeah, so anything here? Anyone? So before ending, if not anything, let's go through these lines. We'll just listen to Shraddhavan's reading. Those who want to leave, if they want to leave, they can leave. We'll listen to Shraddhavan's reading of these few lines that we just covered, and then we will end the session. I'll just play.
All was uncovered to his sealless eye. A secret nature stripped of her defence, once in a dreaded half-light formidable, overtaken in her mighty privacy, lay bare to the burning splendour of his will. In shadowy chambers, lit by a strange sun, and opening hardly to hid mystic keys, her perilous arcanes and hooded powers confessed the advent of a mastering mind, and bore the compulsion of a time-born gaze. Incalculable in their wizard modes, immediate and invincible in the act, her secret strengths, native to greater worlds, lifted above our needy, limited scope, the occult privilege of demigods, and the sure power pattern of her cryptic signs, her diagrams of geometric force, her potencies of marvel-fraught design, courted employment by an earth-nursed might. A conscious nature's quick machinery, armed with a latent splendour of miracle, the prophet passion of a seeing mind, and the lightning bareness of a free soul force. All once impossible deemed could now become a natural limb of possibility, a new domain of normalcy supreme. An almighty occultist,
Yeah, rest we do next time. Thank you, everyone.